As the novelist William Gibson famously said, the future is already here. It's not just very evenly distributed. Good day, everyone. My name is Dimuthu Atugala, the Vice President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter. On behalf of the President Mangal Rajapaksa and the Executive Committee, I would like to welcome every one of you joined from over 20 countries, including Sri Lanka and Kuwait, for this fourth CPD event organized by Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter. Coming to our topic, Future of Business World with Automation and Data Analytics. Well, my dear friends, I don't need to mention the importance of automation and data analytics for today's business world and day-to-day life. The fourth industrial revolution reminds the whole world that it's not the change, it's the pace how the world is changing that made the biggest disruption. Well, now, since majority of us being finance professionals, there could be questions that may bother even you and I. Are these process automation and big data analytics a set of skills that we also should acquire? Or are these roles belongs to IT professionals? Well, the answer is here. Today, 3 of our resource persons are from finance profession. Let me introduce, starting with Hiranthi Fonseka. Hiranthi is an audit partner and leads the Robotic Process Automation service line for Ernst & Young, Sri Lanka. She has over 18 years of professional service experience across many sectors, and also she worked in Ernst & Young, Miami and Florida, USA. Hiranthi is an accredited IFRS trainer and conducted many sessions in Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, and Thailand. More than anything, my dear friends, Hiranthi is one of our fellow members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. Moving to our second resource person for today, that is Johann Anderson. Johann is the manager who leads the Finance Accounting Advisory Tech Service line for Ernst & Young, Sri Lanka. He has also worked in Ernst & Young, United Kingdom on finance transformation engagements. Johann is a certified Uipath advanced developer and has an extensive experience with RStudio, Microsoft Power BI, robotic process automation softwares, advanced statistical models for data analytics and machine learning. And Johann also an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of United Kingdom. Well, our third and final resource person for today, that is Shervin Janze. Shervin is the practice head and the product manager of Uipath EGUARDIAN for Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal. He previously worked as the project manager for digital transformation in PricewaterhouseCoopers in Sri Lanka. Shervin has an extensive experience on enterprise digital transformation, ERP consultancy, application and functional consultancy, business analysis, and business process reengineering. And Shervin also an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of United Kingdom. Hiranthi, Johann, and Shervin, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and we are truly honored and glad to have 3 of you today for this event. With that note, let me hand over the screen to Hiranthi to take the session forward. Just before that, there's a small video clip arranged for every one of you. Sit back and enjoy. Session will be taken up by Hiranthi thereafter.
This is the story of work. It started a long time ago, on a Monday, which was handy. For as long as history itself, the humans needed to work. They wanted to work, to grow things and create things and build things, to see what they were capable of, to stand at day's end and say, I did that, which felt pretty good. So they worked more, built more, and created more, and traveled to far-off places. And then someone suggested submitting expense reports for those far-off places. His name was Glenn, and he was a jackass. Anyway, The people kept getting better at work. They built better tools to work more efficiently. They built amazing machines to work faster. They built computers to work smarter. But still they couldn't do enough work. Because during all that work to do more work, they had created work, and not the good kind. Not the let's sit around and come up with ideas kind. Not the I can't wait to get to work so I can jump into a new project kind. The crap kind. The drudge and data and admin and the damned expense reports. So the humans had to work more at work they didn't like. That made them robotic. That didn't inspire. They had to postpone vacations. They had to miss family dinners. They were pissed. And then something happened. Someone had a really amazing idea. They came into work and said, stop working and start working. The humans thought she might have had wine at lunch, so she showed them a way to put the fun back into work, to waste less time doing the things they hated, to make more efficient the big tasks, to stop making the humans act like robots, and start teaching the robots to learn the humans. Not to replace people, but to free them. Even Glenn. Robots that learn you. Imagine the potential, like starting over, to help us remember again that work only really works when we're happy at it.
Hello everyone. Ayubowan to all of you from all over the world. Thank you, Dimuthu, for that introduction to the panelists today. And let's start the session. So just to keep all of you informed that there will be pop-up questions that you will see and you can answer in order for us to gauge the activities that you all are currently doing in your organizations. So I believe you will be able to see this first question for the day. Please do take the time to answer this question so that we can see, we can get an idea of some of the practices that you all are going through in your organizations. So with that, let's move on to the agenda today. Basically, I will give you an introduction to the automation possibilities in an organization, starting with why we need to look at it at this point, and to say what are the benefits. Thereafter, Johann will take you through some of the technologies that are available, and also considering the cost and the short-term possibilities and the long-term possibilities for an organization. Then we have Shervin from Uipath, who will give you an in-depth introduction, a demo to their tool in terms of the automation tools that they have in the organization. So let's move into our first introduction. Right. Why automation now? Why not is the question that I would like to ask. See, around the world, a lot of our organizations are going through a tough time. With the COVID-19 impact, I would say all organizations are affected in terms of profitability, stability, etc. So you might wonder, is this the right time to think about automation? And I hope that my short introduction to the automation possibilities will convince you that this may be the most suitable time for you to look at, revisit your organization structure and see how you can reap the benefits of automation. Some of the automation possibilities that we are going to discuss today will not involve significant IT costs. Some of them will have certain costs, which we will all discuss, discuss in detail, but some of them will be quite easy to implement in an organization. And also, I know most of you must be CFOs or even operationally involved in organizations, and it must be quite challenging for you to improve bottom lines in your organization. I'm sure that your revenue targets, profit margins are all strained under the economic situation that we are all going through across the world. So again, let's take some good news back to our organizations and say, look, let's do this for our some of the processes, the manual processes that we have, and see how it can benefit our profit. And let's see how it can improve our bottom line. Also, another area that we saw when COVID-19 hit us, and we were all on shutdown mode, most economies were on shutdown mode. We were all expected to work from home. I don't know about some of you out there, but in Sri Lanka, there were large organizations that were unable to actually work from home. Why? Because a lot of their data was not accessible to the individuals from home. We have a lot of legacy systems which sometimes don't speak to each other. So we need to be in office, or we need to have like 5 people sitting around extracting data to sometimes sort out our issues, or just to know some of our monthly numbers or quarterly numbers. Some of our organizations could not close the year end because they did not have access. They did not have access to data. Reconciliations could not happen. These were the practical difficulties that we went through. So I think that video Dimuthu showed us was an excellent summary of why we should look at automation. Our humans, and I must say some of the human labor that is being used to do this mundane type of work are qualified with experience, and they are not happy doing this work. So how do we make sure that our processes within the organization are less reliant on human aspects, but the human is used for more strategic work, the work that the human is actually created to do, like where your intelligence is used. So let's see how we can explore some of the automation possibilities to bring these concepts and make it a reality in our organization. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is a typical organization this is a typical structure in our organizations, where you have the C-suite, you have the COO, you have the CIO, CFO, the head of HR, you'll have the internal audit. In most organizations, we can see under these C-level and under these verticals, there are teams working. If you visit a department, you will see 3-4 people huddled together. Maybe under the CEO, they call themselves the strategy team. Under the CFO, you'll have a bunch of finance executives, or the general ledger team, or the reconciliation team. Under HRD, you will have a bunch of executives. Likewise, in so many of our organizations in various verticals, you will see teams of people working. What do? If you look at the strategy teams, a lot of them are sitting and preparing monthly KPI reports. What do? They go to our system, take the data out, customize it, take it to an Excel or some other form of web tool that is available, and translate it to the KPIs. We prepare board papers on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis. Where do we get the data? Again, someone has to sit down, go to our ERP or the general ledger, extract data, and start populating the format that we use every month, every quarter. Now tell me, to extract data, do a few adjustments which we do every month or every quarter, and to update a report, there is no intelligence required. Is there any intelligence required? Are human beings happy doing that kind of work? Why? It's manual, it's repetitive. There is no intelligence required. There's no strategic decision that you are making. And there's really no value addition to the organization. A little sad to say, finance department is the biggest culprit. We have teams and teams of people, GL team, reconciliation team, and whatnot, doing this typical manual repetitive work. Again, be it reconciliations, be it your typical journal entry passing, be it your debtor creditor monitoring, account preparation, what do? Extract the data that is already there, put it into the format that we do every month, and send it to someone for review or any decision making. Even in HR, IT, even in internal audit, we have this type of repetitive type of work. So how do we eliminate this repetitive manual work in our organizations being done by human beings? Instead, use those human beings for more value adding type of work, so that the organization feels that these individuals are creating value to the organization. Let's move on to the next slide. Right. Again, in the finance department, I think I have sort of touched on these. A lot of these manual work, bank reconciliation, sales ordering and invoicing, your fixed asset management, receivable management, and I know under the current circumstances, working capital management is a huge area that is under scrutiny, and it is the finance department who has to make sure that working capital is managed. Again, you may not have the tools in place to do this, because the circumstances post-COVID are so different that you may need to have different practices to manage your working capital under the current circumstances. So again, do we go into Excel sheets, or are there tools available which can be easily used to make your life easy? Let's move on to the next slide. Right. So we promised, or I said at the start of the session, that we will talk about two areas where your cost will be quite less if you were to implement these solutions, and another tool that is available that can be costly, but in the long run may be a better way to move forward for an organization. So here we have a few open source automation solutions that are available in the market, which you can use without the license fee at the initial point. So I'm going to ask Johann to come in and explain a few of these solutions that are available, which are free for you to use in the organization. And for smaller problems, this can be a good tool to start off with for your automation journey. Johann, over to you.
Thanks. Thank you, ma'am. Hi everyone. Good evening to you if you're from Sri Lanka. Good afternoon, I believe, if you're from Kuwait, and good morning if you're from any other part of the world. So, very simply, as Hiranthi stated, there can be open source solutions as well, which companies can benefit from it, which there's zero license cost. So first of all, if you take VBA, which is your Excel-based macros, it works very well with Excel operations. So you can automate VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, and that type of similar items using VBA. Then when you move on to Python, Python is basically an open source solution that is used for any type of automation. Ideally, at the moment, most of the organizations use it for IT type testing and developments, but it can be used to, for example, to run email automations, to write various interactions between multiple types of data sets, maybe with your ERP system. You can maybe reconcile something that comes out from a PDF to an email. So Python is the ideal tool to be used for simple type operations. But of course, you can even use it for large scale operations, but the amount of coding you will need to build in will be a lot. Then moving on to R. R is also an open source solution, but unlike Python, R is specifically used for statistics. Even Python has libraries that are used for statistics, but R is the best tool in the market for statistics. So using R, you can do many things. One of the best functions of R is you can easily do forecasting, machine learning, correlation analysis, and even sentiment analysis, which I'll be showing you through the rest of the session. Then going on to Microsoft Power BI, it is one of the visualization tools. So a visualization tool such as Power BI or even Tableau is not like R, because you can't do data analysis or you can't do statistical analysis using it. What you can do is basically you can link it to a data set and you can show it better with charts, diagrams to explain the story that you want to say. So Microsoft Power BI, the desktop version is free, but the license version is not free. But if your company has already invested in, say, the Microsoft Enterprise Edition, Microsoft Power BI also comes as an addition with it. So maybe check with your IT team whether are you using Microsoft Enterprise Edition, because then you can get the license version of Microsoft Power BI. With that, I'll hand it back over to Madam Hiranthi.
Thank you, Johann. So that was some of the tools, and quick introduction to some of the tools that are available that are coming to you free of charge, that you can use in your organizations to make your lives easy and maybe to start your automation journey. And as Johann said, please do stay with us, because he will be showing you some of the things that you can do in an organization using these tools. He will showcase to you some of the work products that we have done using these tools. So do stay with us. Then I will quickly give you an introduction to a solution that comes at a cost. That is Robotic Process Automation, or we call it RPA, or we call it BOT. Now, this is a software that is available, and the license fee needs to be paid if an organization is interested in using the software. This software would be a sort of a long-term tool for an organization, and it has quite a lot of benefits. First, let me introduce the tool to you. So the tool, and there are so many vendors out there. We have Uipath, and Shervin will take you through the nitty-gritties of the Uipath tool in relation to RPA. We also have other tools like Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, which is widely used by organizations. So you can decide on the software that is more suited to your company. Now, once you buy this license to an organization, this allows you to transfer your manual processes to this RPA or to this bot. Now, the bot usually has a capacity of 24 hours into 365 days. So, within an organization, your finance task, your IT task, your HR task, your task of the strategy team or your internal audit, all of those tasks which are manual and repetitive, which does not require any intelligence, can be transferred to this software, and that will be scheduled to perform tasks. So let's say at 2 o'clock in the morning, the bot will do a bank reconciliation. Then at 2:30, it will go on to the debtor reconciliation. Then maybe at 4 o'clock in the morning, it will do some HR work. Then like that, 24 hours, that license can be used to perform your manual repetitive work. So if your organization has quite a lot of these manual repetitive type of work, you can make the best use of these type of software. And the good news is it works with your existing software. So let's say you have a human being sitting and talking to 2-3 systems to get data and perform various type of work. The bot also can do the same type of work because it is not integrated into your internal systems. It sits on top of the existing system to speak and get the data out, right? So that is one of the beauties of these systems, where it does not need to be integrated into the existing legacy systems, but it will get the work done just like a human being. And as a result, the implementation time for a RPA is quite short, as opposed to investing in IT systems to sort out your manual repetitive work. And as opposed to a human being doing the work, a bot doing the work is much faster, and that can bring in efficiencies. Let's move into the next slide. Right. Now I will do a comparison of RPA and some of the tools that Johann explained to you, which are free of charge, because you need to make the most informed decision about what tool is best for you. When it comes to accuracy, both types of tools will have a high degree of accuracy. However, when it comes to audit trail, the freely available tools are not so great. And I know as accountants, with our background, we can be quite nervous if there is no audit trail. And of course, some of the processes must have an audit trail. Therefore, when you are choosing the freely available licenses, please be mindful for what you are using it for. If the processes are financial reporting dependent, or where you need to where you will get audited either by the external auditor or the regulator or the internal auditor, you need to be careful when you are using the freely available licenses. Whereas with RPA, there is no issue like that, because your RPA licenses will come with audit trail and of course the security, because these are highly recognized organizations that sell RPA licenses. The level of security will be very high. Let's move on. Of course, productivity, return on investments, RPA takes the lead. But when it comes to the licensing cost, compared to the other tools that are available, RPA does have a cost. So now you need to weigh the pros and cons and look at it from a short-term, long-term perspective and decide what is the best solution at this point. Let's move on, Johann. When it comes to implementation effort, some of the freely available license can be a little ineffective because they can take a long time to code, whereas the RPA softwares that are available are not that time consuming to code. When it comes to IT knowledge, again, when it comes to the freely available tools, you need to have a technical competency to do the coding, whereas RPA, it is more user friendly. And even if the resources in your organizations are not heavily technically skilled, they should be able to learn the RPA process configuring. So in short, as I said, for a short-term solution and where it is not high-risk processes, the freely available tools can be a good starting point. But if you are looking at it from a long-term perspective, I would ask you to look at the RPA solutions that are available. I think that is it for my introduction today. With that, I will hand you over to Johann, who will take you through in much more detail on the solutions that are available with examples on how you can start your automation journey. Also, please remember, if you all have any questions, please do post the questions to us. At the end of the session, we will take it up once all panelists have finished their sessions.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So let's continue with automation. Here, what I am going to show you is some of the automation solutions that that EY basically our division has come up with. So this is basically using Python, where we have taken a simple picture of an invoice, maybe any type of invoice, and using this invoice, we have extracted data from it and kept it in text form. So once the data is kept in text form, next it could be used to say maybe pass journal entries, recognize the data in a different system. So that process could be done using Python. Then using Power BI, something very interesting that you can do is you can do web scraping. What that means is you can use Power BI to connect to any website or to any page on the internet, and you can scrape out data. So here, what is done is I have gone into Twitter, and as the name suggested, BBC Twitter Analytics, and gone into BBC webpage and searched based on the given topics, because I was interested to understand the Sri Lankan elections. And here you can see what exactly a person says, who has said it, how many times the tweet has been retweeted as well. So when it comes to privacy, you see now that with tools like Power BI, you can extract every single bit of detail that you publish on, say, social media. So maybe be a bit more careful when it comes to publishing on social media. And also when you come down towards the table, you will see that using a thing called word cloud, you can also extract what is the most dominant word. So since I search by Sri Lanka, obviously Sri Lanka will be the most dominant word. So also BBC talks about, say, for example, India, country, and other words as well. So this is very good technology that you can use to scrape anything from the website, and which is also freely available. What you can do is, based on all the comments that people post online, if you have to analyze each and every comment, let's say you're a company, you're a brand, you're trying to understand what your reputation is, or whether there's any risk on your reputation or on your brand, if there is any negative activity or feedback coming from it. So using R, what you can do is you can extract the data from Power BI, take it into R, and using R, you can come up with this chart to understand what exactly people talk about you and how they perceive you. So for example, there's anger, there's disgust, there's fear. So all these emotions get tracked down. Then you see the purple column, which is negative, and the pink column, which is positive. So it says that a certain degree of the comments are positive, while some is negative. And also using Power BI, what we managed to do, since you can connect to any data, any website. So here we have connected it to Colombo Stock Exchange, and we have got a summary of how exactly the Colombo Stock Exchange is performing. And also below that, we have been able to scrape specific company information. So let's say if you're following up on specific companies, you can automatically refresh the page each and every time when it updates with the latest information from the stock exchange. And going a step further now, as accountants, some of the biggest complications we see is trying to implement these new standards. So the leasing standard is a very big problem, because if you're a bank, a finance company, a retail company, or a company that has plenty of leases, or operational leases, that is, you might have a big problem when it comes to accounting for it and also controlling the data. So what we have done is, using Excel VBA, we have been able to automate this process, where very simply you can enter in as at which date you want the results. Once you feed in and we create the database, and when you click the run button, Excel will give you this type of a summary sheet where you only need to pass the entries. So it's very simple. So this is how maybe you can use some of the open source solutions to give you an edge when it comes to automation, right? So on RPA implementation, I think Madam Hiranthi already has given us the introduction, so I won't spend too much time with it. But just before I start, an interesting statistic for you to understand is, as a result of COVID-19, obviously everybody's thinking of automation, and automation is the best solution for this going ahead. So one question is, when it comes to automation, I know from experience, most of the companies, the way it starts is always the IT team may identify one process and think that, okay, this is a manual task, this process needs to be automated. So many companies come to us and they always think about automating only maybe one or two processes, which is not the way to go. So why do you want to come to a company like EY, who has global expertise in the RPA implementation aspect? Is because we can help you to scale up and also look at the long term. Scaling means we try to identify you a portfolio of processes, or develop a repository for you to identify hundreds of processes which you can automate. So one such way that it can be done is, we base it on initially identifying the easiest process to automate, because when it comes to implementation, obviously there can be certain processes that have large number of steps or large number of activities. Because when it comes to automation, a simple click, a simple opening an Excel, say going from left to right, or doing an addition, all that is a step. So if you take your day-to-day processes, there can be 10s, 20s, even hundreds of steps in it. So obviously you might want to start your process first with a process which can be automated with limited steps. Because if you start with the difficult process, you might take a long time for you to implement it. And in the end, you might feel, okay, I have not got my return on the investment. Why should I? And which process gives you the highest return? So obviously, when you talk about ROI, you need to understand from a cost point of view, how much of cost saving. So obviously, if you are looking at a daily process, which is done every single day, you will be saving that into 365 days. So it's brilliant if you could identify daily processes, which is the best way to move forward. And thereafter, once we identify the section in the green, then we can identify processes which are more difficult to implement, but they also give you a higher opportunity. So we start with the easiest one, and then we go to the next, the more, but they give we can help you is to identify the process which you should not consider. Obviously, a process that gives you the lowest returns and is the most difficult to implement is something not what you should be starting with. So definitely stay away from those types of processes. Right. So this is just to give you a flavor based on our expertise and our experience why RPA projects fail. Because definitely, if you have done your research, you will see many times companies fail in their RPA implementation and they think it's just a waste of time and a waste of money. So what we have identified is these 4 paradigms, which are some of the reasons for the failure. So if we talk about processes, I told you in the previous step, you have to identify the right process. So don't identify the wrong process first. Then when you go into your people culture, obviously, lots of us think, I mean, we as accountants think if you automate our job, will we lose our job? So there's fear in the market. Then there are cultural, moral issues that come into play. And so that also creates a problem of going ahead with automation. Then further, also from the external side, sometimes you can get influenced to say, I told you, like, maybe you might think automation is only for the finance division, or automation is only for the marketing division, while it's not for anyone else. Or maybe automation is only for one type of process, which is the most complicated process you have, which is not the actual point in reality. So this is where external influence from your stakeholders can influence you to get the wrong process. Then from a technology point of view, it's very important to get somebody from IT, ideally a person who understands the infrastructure in your company, to onboard when you work with RPA, because your infrastructure needs to be scalable. Scalable meaning if your RPA works at a given efficiency speed, your system should also be able to match that speed. Otherwise, if your system works slowly, then even though RPA is efficient, the system might give the data out really slowly, and in the end, there might not be much of a saving doing it using RPA. So obviously, the right technology also needs to be there. And finally, from a strategy point of view, what you need to understand is that there has to be some person in the division who actually takes ownership of it, somebody whom you can look to. So what we can do is we can establish you an RPA division, or we can help you to establish it, which is the center of excellence, where in this division you identify all the processes, when the process needs to run, if you have any new processes that can be brought in. So it's like a division for RPA. So obviously you can't start with the RPA division, but we can help you to identify this and start to establish a COE within your company. And thereafter, you can take control of it, and we can just advise you on how to go forward. Right. So that's it for me on the RPA point of view. Before I give it to Shervin, just to show you a live demonstration of a accounting process here, which I'll be automating using Uipath. So as the flow shows you, this is how it will look in Uipath when you do the activities and you connect the activities together. So here what we're doing is we are going to extract 2 different types of invoices in 2 different formats, and we'll be extracting the data from it, taking it out into Excel, and from Excel I'll be taking it on into the system. So I don't have a system here. I have made some sort of a web page within Google to act as the system. So very simply, this is going to automate your journal entry process from the point you get the invoice, and thereafter complete that full process. So let's take a look at that. Right. So I hope you can see my screen. So very simply, I'm going to run this process now. And once before I run it, just to show you that basically now you see there's an invoice in the invoice folder. There's one more type of invoice in the invoice folder too. So it's going to extract all these details from the invoice and then paste it in the system. So let's run this process. So it might take a bit of time because my computer has so many types of softwares in it. It has Power BI, R, and all the softwares working at the same time. It takes a bit of time sometimes for it to work, but I'll be walking you through exactly what is happening. So here, the first step is, it is opening the first invoice, right? So I have purposely brought in a delay because as you open the invoice, it brings up a different pop-up box. So these are type of the factors when it comes to debugging. that when you run a process, you need to note down, because sometimes when you open it manually, you might not face this, but when it opens to the bot, these types of issues will happen. So you see it has gone to the top, then I brought it down. So all that is activity. So here you see, I have scraped the data and it comes the invoice number, the date, the amount and the tax amount, which is the entries we need to pass. So I just click OK. This is done for me to just get an understanding of the process and just for debugging purposes as well. But ideally, I don't need to do this, but I'm just doing it just to show you. So now it will close this particular PDF document and it will open the next document, which has 3 PDF invoices. So if you are surprised, just to further surprise you, I am not doing anything. I'm just talking to you while the bot does everything, just sitting behind and enjoying while the bot does all the work. So now it's going into the second folder and it's extracting this type of invoice. So once again, it will extract the specific data. So from a large scale point of view, let's say you have 1,000 invoices that come on that you have to process on a daily basis. Imagine the amount of work that you would need to do. But imagine now that since the bot is doing this work, you can sit back, let the bot do all this basic type of journal entry posting work from this type of PDF documents, while you do something much more important where you can focus your energy on something else. So this type of a process is ideal for you to actually use as an automation example, because there's because this is a end-to-end process, and which you talk, when I say end-to-end, it starts from the beginning of extracting the data from the PDF till you post it in the system. I could have even further lengthened the process by maybe taking it to the email, because Outlook also allows you, so UiPath also allows you to do Outlook based operations, or basically email based operations. So let's say if the suppliers or the customers send you the invoice by email, I can even extract it from the email based on criteria and save it in a particular folder and then let the bot run it. So even that process can also be done. But for simplicity, I have shortened the process, otherwise it might take a bit more time. So one more point to note is, now you see the amount of time it takes just to do these 3 invoices. So ideally, to do it in my laptop is not scalable. So definitely you have to identify a particular computer within your organization which does not have any other types of softwares that gives it maximum efficiency only to UiPath. Then it will work on a highly efficient basis. So that is why you need to get somebody from the IT side as well who understands this. But at the same note, we can even help you to come up with a good platform that sets up UiPath or any other RPS software. So now it has scraped the data, it's pasted it within Excel, and now it takes it, it's going to the system. So here, since I don't have a system, I've created a Google document that acts like a ERP system. So you see it's pasting the data in the given columns: invoice date, number, amount, tax, and it's submitting it. So this entire process that I spoke about is now being done all by the bot. While I didn't do a single thing, I just walked you through it. Right. So let's stop it. So like that, I just showed you one example. It can be used for multiple types of processors to do these types of activities. Another useful process which you can use it for, apart from accounts payable, accounts receivable, is even when it comes to approving various types of, say, if you're a bank and you have to approve loans or you have to grant loans, even that entire process now can be done by a bot, where the customer only fills the details and it comes in a PDF format, and the entire process can now be taken forward by you. Right. So with that, I'm not going to explain to you how to do this due to time constraints, but what I will do is I will share this data set with you so that you can try and play around with these types of activities, and that you can even experience firsthand how UiPath works. So that's it for me from the RPA point of view. I will now hand it over to Shervin to take it over to explain what exactly is UiPath and why UiPath is different compared to all the other RPA softwares in the market. So Shervin, over to you.
Thanks, Johann, as well as Hiranthi, for nice presentation with valuable insights to RPA tools and its practical application. In fact, many organizations are at a very critical point at this particular time, uh, especially trying to identify processes and trying to reduce the human dependency through automation. And another important thing would be organizations are actually looking to free the human resources, free the valuable human resources in order to make them comfortable, may give them the time to rethink about the business and its operations in a new way. So despite of my current job role as a person coming from finance background and as a management accountant, I would like to also thank CA Institute first of all to arrange this kind of a session, especially for people who are coming from finance, especially for your members and students, to get up to date about this latest technology, which is of course going to impact which is of course going to influence, or which is going to impact each and every one of us. Um, so for us, it's actually a essential thing to gain this particular knowledge, to get updated, and to apply this in our organizations as well. Because relating back to that particular cartoon which we showed, okay, so Glenn was a person who suggested the expense report. Okay, so you can think about yourself, and I can also think about myself when I started my journey as an accountant. So how many processes or how many reconciliations, controls that you suggested for your organizations, which have resulted in mundane and repetitive work. So for organizations now, which are suffering because, okay, now the controls are being there, but are we going to pump more and more resources and create dependencies, or are we trying to automate? So the good part is you all and we all coming from the finance background, we understand where to put controls, we understand the processes, we always try to optimize those. So with that, imagine the enablement or the power you can get if you are enabled with RPA also, because you can take it across your organization. So just before I actually start my presentation, I would like to give a small introduction to EGUARDIAN. We are primarily technology distributors at a regional level. In terms of Uipath, we are acting as the face of Uipath in Sri Lanka. And we also represent the region as a value-added distributor, especially for emerging markets. So if I move on to the next slide, just to give a small introduction to Uipath. So Uipath is actually the undisputed leader, market leader in terms of RPA, according to many research bodies like Gartner, Forrester Wave, and Everest. And it is the fastest growing software enterprise at this point. So you can check the independent report as well as consulting bodies about Uipath and where it actually positioned itself. So it is also the first mover for hyper automation. Okay, so today I'm going to actually take you through the hyper automation, some of the modules as well as new features which will actually help you to take this RPA for your organization. Okay, so to begin with, hyperautomation is actually using the end-to-end automation by harnessing the technologies like RPA, AI, as well as machine learning. Okay, so to talk about the completeness, you can see UiPath is today, it is not only a platform where you can build and execute bots, but it is also a platform where you can plan, you can manage, you can engage, as well as you can measure your automation. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so for most of the organizations, like Johann explained, okay, most of you or most of the organizations have come to a point that they have done at least one implementation or at least one proof of concept in their journey, but most of the scenarios, they are finding it's difficult to scale up beyond this particular time. So Johann actually explained very comprehensively what processes you need to focus on how to start with. Okay, but to do that you have to analyze all the processes, you have to build some kind of a process pipeline. Okay, so this is one reason why most of the organizations are taking very laid back approach, or they are quite slow in adopting to RPA because they don't have a pipeline. So if they have a pipeline, so imagine they can budget for their projects, they can well plan their resources, as well as they will exactly know what sort of ROI and what sort of efficiency it is going to bring to the organization in the relevant period of time. Okay, so UiPath has also identified this particular bottleneck or the challenge. So that's why they have come up with this wonderful feature called Enterprise Connect Hub, which helps you to identify your automation ideas and build your automation pipeline without much of a hassle. So without talking further, I would like to take you through a small video which will show you what it exactly does.
Hello. Are you ready to delegate tedious tasks to a digital helper so you can speed up your work and focus on what matters most? Excellent. Let's introduce you to the tool that will help you do just that. Uipath Automation Hub. It works a little something like this. You identify the repetitive, time-consuming work you want a software robot to do for you instead, and then you use the tool to submit your automation idea to people who collaborate with you to turn your idea into something real. How, you ask? Come with us on a quick tour and we'll show you. To begin, think of the work you don't like doing, or the repetitive data entry, copy-paste tasks that take up so much of your valuable time. As we say, if you hate it, automate it. If you're not sure where to start, you can check out what your teammates are thinking of automating. Everyone's automation ideas flow into a master list. Use the list to get inspired or show your support for other ideas. Look here, John has gone and upvoted Jill's idea. Nice one. John can follow this to keep on top of its progress and add feedback to build on the idea. This has got off to a great start. In the people space, John explores what other great ideas Jill or other teammates have submitted. A great space to get inspired and connected indeed, where you can check out automation ideas that mean something to you, or get help on your own ideas. By now, John knows exactly which tedious task he can hand off to a robot. Hit that submit idea, John. Let's do this. The wizard will take you through it. Easy. Here's another little fun twist. You earn a badge and get a score for your idea. Up we go to see the top players on the leaderboard. John and Jill are the most active contributors, it seems, and you get higher up if your automation idea gets more votes. This is fun. Here's John's submission, moving from idea phase to assessment phase. Moving on up, John. An automation that started out as an idea, becoming an actual functioning software robot that liberates you from frustrating, mind-numbing tasks. I know, I'm getting goosebumps too, folks. Behind the scenes, a team works to bring your automation ideas to life. There's Tony, a business analyst, helping assess Jill's idea. Once Jill's idea is approved, Tony will document it as part of the analysis phase. Finally, Tanya receives Jill's idea, and she will go to work with her developer and solution architect magic to make it happen. And what a great way to end this all, knowing John and Jill's automation will soon be a reality, making their jobs meaningful again and saving their team and the organization heaps of time. Their automations powered positive change, as can yours. Go on, get into that driver's seat and help decide which automations take your company forward. Sign in to start exploring.
Great. So it is actually a platform where you can submit ideas, not just ideas, but also ideas with information to determine the RPA eligibility as well as the ROI. So moving to the next slide, I can show some of the functionalities of this particular tool. So when you are submitting the ideas with this information to determine the ROI and RPA eligibility, so it will automatically build the pipeline of automation for your organization, which will create visibility for your management as well as the organization to focus on which projects to be focused on the deployment based on the ROI factor as well as in terms of the eligibility. Okay, so moving forward, in terms of the documentation side, Johan, we can move to the previous slide. Yeah, thanks. In terms of the documentation, so once you identify, then there will be a complex process of documenting tasks. Okay, now once you deploy a solution, let's say you identify a solution like bank reconciliation, or you identify a solution like purchase order creation in your order to cash process. So in this particular scenario, okay, you will come up with a certain scope, but these scopes tend to improve because process in nature, they will improve, and organization stakeholders will come up with the suggestions and strategies to enhance, bring more logics, controls, and to handle exceptions as well. Okay, so in this kind of a scenario, maintaining this documentation will also become a challenge. But with this particular tool, you will have an opportunity pipeline against which you can track the progress as well as maintain the documentation library as well. So on the other hand, imagine you are a large organization or a conglomerate. Okay, so there are different finance departments, there are different IT departments working in a large conglomerate. Okay, so in let's say a scenario where in one subsidiary, bank reconciliation was quickly adopted, or purchase order creation to a sales order creation was adopted. Now in this particular scenario, another cluster or another organization in the same company who want to adopt can come into the component gallery and see what the group holdings has done, and quickly adopt it to their organization or the cluster, which will actually expedite this automation journey as an enterprise practice. So not only that, it will be a collaboration as well as it will create an internal community for people to submit ideas and collaborate, look at and vote for each other. Then it will also help, especially when you are trying to implement a center of excellence, awarding, rewarding certain stakeholders who are coming up with wonderful ideas to automate. So there will be a rewarding mechanism, rating mechanism suggested by the platform itself, where it will be much easy and people will also be motivated. Nevertheless, it will also provide visualization in terms of, okay, which projects to focus on to gain this much of ROI, and where you are currently positioned in terms of your implementation, the project management dashboards as well. So this will be a wonderful tool for especially the domain guys who are coming from finance, because we have so much of ideas. That's the main reason why when we started our accounting and finance practice, if you are someone from internal audit background, so we have pumped so many process ideas for your organization. Now if you can convert those ideas into automation driven ideas, so imagine the power it can, or imagine the value it can create for your organization. So now we have something where we can build our pipeline, but the next part would be the most difficult part. This is by, okay, let's say we have identified one scenario. Now we have to drill down, get the requirement from the users. And users often, they most of the time tell 60% of the requirement. You may have experienced that if you have involved in a RP implementation or ERP implementation, so you know this particular situation. So how to get this detailed requirement? Sometimes it is even from consulting point of view also, it is quite difficult to get into the very detailed level from our human capacity and get all the necessary data. So UiPath has again come up with task mining and task capturing features, where you can actually mine into certain tasks which you will be doing. So without talking further, I would like to show another video which will explain how the task mining and task capturing will be done in UiPath.
Once you've started delegating mundane tasks to software robots and seen how RPA transforms your work and your team, your next question is, how can we do more? Where can automation save us even more time and effort? Discovering more RPA opportunities can be expensive and time-consuming. Why not let technology make that easier too? Uipath Explorer is here to help. This innovative product family applies science to transform the traditional methods of process discovery. Goodbye, manual research. Let Explorer do the work for you to uncover and recommend process automations in a way that's fast, efficient, and scientific. There are two products to help you, Explorer Enterprise and Explorer Expert. Start with Explorer Enterprise. With powerful artificial intelligence, it identifies the highest value processes to benefit from automation. Let Explorer Enterprise automatically go through your day-to-day procedures and generate data-driven process maps and automation suggestions. Then proceed with Explorer Expert. This product collects deeper insights from your subject matter experts. This way, you easily collect employee best practices and convert them into automation opportunities. Eventually, use both products of the Explorer family to connect your process experts and RPA developers. Quickly save your automation suggestions as a process definition document, workflow diagram, or export them to UiPath Studio. With the UiPath Explorer product family, you'll easily discover more tasks to automate, no matter where you're at on your RPA journey. Try UiPath Explorer and let science supercharge RPA process discovery for further workplace transformation.
Okay, great. So the Explorer family will help you to discover process and get the data from the users and analyze that and plan your RPA. So let's see how it actually happens in the next slide. Okay, so this is a dashboard created from Explorer Enterprise. So this is just by recording or monitoring the user activity. So you can see how much of time it has taken, 13 minutes, and it has 14 users allocated for this particular task from beginning to the end. How many steps and how many variants are there, and it has also identified the as-is process. So this is simply by monitoring the user activities. So this is the statistics the central administrator or the center of excellence get through this particular enterprise. So if you are coming from, again, the internal audit background, or if you are coming from finance background, we try to put more controls and try to make the processes more efficient. So in this level, you can imagine this Enterprise Connect Hub will how much of value it can bring to your organization. Now you can quickly monitor, quickly get the data in terms of the processes the people are doing, and automatically create them into as-is business processes, as well as you will have more meaningful data, which is quite humanly impossible to go into that level of nitty-gritty and to identify. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so it works like this. So you will have a small screen where you have the central administrator level. You can define users. You can simply ask users to capture what they are doing. So when they accept, it will actually start monitoring what they are doing at the task level, and it will generate this particular dashboards for the center of excellence users. So they can actually decide, okay, based on that, what is the automation eligibility, and quickly convert them into process documents as well. So you can apply this particular situation where there are large amount of users who are at the very what we call the data entry level or the task level. But going forward in the next slide, so I would like to discuss about what sort of benefits it will actually bring to your organization if you deploy or adopt into technologies like this with hyper automation. One fact would be getting the process discovery best practices for your organization within a quick span of time. And if you try to do this activity through the internal business analyst, or even if you outsource it to another organization to do it for you, all these tasks will come into billable hours and billable days. So if you can quickly adapt, use these particular technology, one thing is you can quickly get these things, and also you can cut down the time, and it will actually, because time is a cost factor, so you can cut down the time and you can reduce the cost factor in bringing a process to a live status. So on the other hand, how it will impact the partner organizations or consulting bodies like EY. So Johann also explained how in the manual way this is done. But for consulting organizations also, one thing, they have to undergo a manual task, a mundane task in order to get this particular data. And sometimes there can be resistance, there can be users who are not telling the right information as well. For them, now they can focus because they are getting the information upfront. They can see where the bottlenecks are. They can focus on value additions such as process improvements, suggesting the best practices, identifying the bottlenecks, and apply how to apply the automation on top of that. On the other hand, for organizations who are having quite restriction in showing their processes to outside organization, still they will be able to use this particular technology and adopt process discovery best practices to quickly get their processes on board. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, so this is actually for you guys, especially people who are coming in the finance background and the operational. We have created our process manuals, SOPs. Okay, now most of you know how outdated those documents are, because every quarter, every month there is a small change, but those documents are not updated because it's not a part of the day-to-day. So most of the organization, they are still having the documents which they actually got from their system integrator when they deployed their ERP. Okay, now what does this Explorer Expert do? So it is actually a process capturing tool which is given along with the Enterprise Connect Hub. So the idea is, in the Enterprise Connect Hub, you identify which projects to focus, and in the capturing level, in terms of requirement gathering level, so you can use a task mining if the users are quite not mature, but if the users are mature, or if you are capable enough to take in the leadership, you can do the process capturing behalf of the organization. So it will be a desktop application. It will actually start capturing your data in terms of screenshots. So when you are running through the process, it will take the screenshots, but along with that, it will take the meaningful data. And for an example, if you run a particular invoice creation or a purchase order creation to a purchase order to SO creation process, all these steps will be recorded in terms of screenshots. You can edit these screenshots, label them, blur them, the sensitive data, as well as you can export this particular ASIS processes to best practices incorporated process design document as an export function, as well as you can export it to a UiPath workflow, which Johann actually showed a small workflow diagram built on UiPath process designer tool. So that means while you are capturing the process, tool has the intelligence to build the backbone of the process as well. So now you can imagine how much of value creation and speed it can deliver for the automation journey of your organization. So while moving to the next slide, so this is just a small overview. How does how it will work? You have a small record button, and you can also capture it in custom templates if you want to do it so. But most of the people are going with the record icon or the recorder feature, so you can quickly get your process captured through the particular tool. So let's move to the next slide. Okay, so today all this Enterprise Connect Hub, the Explorer family work hand in hand, building the pipeline and also getting the processes quickly on board to the development ready stage, which took most of the time and most of the effort previously. Now you can focus on more value adding by looking at the process nitty-gritties through the analytics it will provide. So we can actually move to the next slide. Okay, so the last but not the least, this is the particular tool I wanted you to focus on. So RPA is actually for everyone, and every one of us needs to have that ability to adopt that. So in one way, this is why UiPath is a superior product, because we promote automation for everyone. So imagine how much of power you can bring to your organization if you can automate things by your own, if the things are easy. So the development studio, Johann also mentioned, is quite simple, and you can do the drag and drop activities. But for functional users who are from finance department, operation department, or people who are from HR, it will be much easy if they have a tool like Visio to drag and drop, where it is seamlessly integrated with Outlook and Excel, where we spend most of our time on that. So this application, I would like to give you a small overview in the next slide. So you can see the functionalities or the activities are have defined to a very granular level. So it is more like you are creating a visual workflow or working in the Excel itself. So you have the action, the create table, which means you can quickly build your small workflows. So imagine the daily or weekly on a Monday, you have to create a debtors report. Now for that also you have to spend good 30 to 1 hour of time downloading the report and everything. But if you take from the ROI perspective, it's only a part of your daily activity. There's not much of a saving or ROI it will bring if you look at very holistically. But if you look at, okay, how many tasks like this, how many small tasks you will be doing in a day, and if you can automate, of course, it will bring a really good value for your organization. Johann, we can move to the previous slide. Okay. So also you can, it's more like you're working in Excel itself. So you have Excel workspace. While you are doing the work, it will also create the particular workflows, or it will identify those activities as UiPath activities. It has the intelligence to do so. So the good part is the Studio X for citizen developers or functional users, and Studio Pro comes in the same license. It's just a change of a version. So idea is you can quickly build your small workflows and hand it over to a professional UiPath developer who can incorporate the complex logics as well as the dynamic elements. So you can quickly onboard this particular process. So that's why I said it is for everyone, and everyone has the knowledge. Based on your current working experience, you can quickly adopt automation in your organization. Okay, so moving to the next slide. So is it difficult to learn all about this? So I wanted to give something to take home. Okay, so most of the learnings are freely available in our Uipath Academy. You can just type academy.uipath.com. You get courses from business analyst to RP awareness to Studio X, where you can quickly learn and apply and practice some of the things. So this is just an overview about our ecosystem, the resources you have. Even if you want to get a small area clarified, you can connect to UiPath forum. There are thousands of professionals to respond to your queries. And our community edition is free of charge. You can download that even today and start practicing collaboratively with the UiPath Academy. So moving to the next slide. In my last slide, I want to give you something to take home, a learning plan. If you want to start today, what sources are there? So we suggest something called Learn, Practice, and Apply. So you can learn through Academy and our UiPath webinars. It's freely available. And learning plan, a quick learning plan, since you are getting these slides after this particular meeting, you can start with the starter, business analyst, you can do the citizen development and gradually take up your development journey as well as a finance profession. So we have a lot of finance as well as operational users who have become RPA developers and taking their journey in their organization. So our community edition is again free for you to learn, test, and practice some of the automations. And when it comes to the enterprise level application, we always recommend to go with enterprise licenses. So only in the application you will incur a cost for your organization. So with that, I think we have come to the end of my particular slide. So any questions you can post and we would address that in the Q&A section. Thank you very much.
So I'm Johann here back again. Now let's move on to data analytics. Right. So the first question when you come into data analytics is, first of all, what is big data? I'm pretty sure all of us have understood that there is a concept called big data, but I'm not sure we as accountants fully understand what it means. So popular magazines such as The Economist have stated that big data is the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. Then companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, they are billion-dollar companies and some of the most richest companies in the world. Why are they so profitable, or why are they so big? It's because they understand data. So with that, let me explain you what exactly big data is. So Ernst & Young has given their own definition of big data, which is pretty lengthy. It's a full paragraph, and I'm not going to take you through that, but maybe you can try to read it. But if you look down, I have shown you an image of a chain. So what I personally believe big data is a chain of events, and it's how you understand this chain. So big data would start with you collecting data. So ideally your data might be warehoused in a system or in your ERP. So how you would collect the data is the first step. So for that itself, there's a tool. Then when it comes to collection of data, you need to extract the data and play around with it. Maybe keep the data in Excel, or maybe keep it in some other format. Thereafter, moving on, you need to analyze data. That is where you need to use a different tool. Obviously, people do lots of analysis in Excel, but Excel is, if you compare Excel and you take R, Excel would be as if when we were back in school, we were using and we were doing our O-level maths paper, we were not supposed to use a calculator. So it was like we had to think and calculate. So when you compare Excel, Excel is like us using or basically not using a calculator. But when we come to R, It's like we have the most advanced calculator in our hands to do many more functions than Excel. So data analysis now can be done in R. And finally, when it comes to dashboard generation, this is where Power BI comes into play. Once you've analyzed the data and you understand what to do with it, maybe there's a correlation, maybe there's some sort of a profitable revenue growth or a forecast. So now you can visualize that to further explain your story. So this full story is only what you mean by big data. Right. So I don't have much time. I'll try to summarize this the best I can. So when you take use cases, here is a basic example of working capital. This can be built on Power BI. So ideally, what now as management accountants or as accountants, we have all our ratios that we compute, or all these types of working capital ratios, debtors, creditors, and all that jazz. So now this full process can be automated using Power BI. So you can automate this and you can even show it in a very nice illustration. Then going on to statistical analysis, I have pasted this and it's directly extracted from R. So the first image here, which shows you the wavy lines like a forecast, is something which is to predict the house prices of a given area based on given variables. For example, whether there is a school in that area, what the type of people who live there, what is the annual salary of them. So here you see that using R, you can predict what is the actual line, which is the blue color line. Then you can see what is the predicted line. So here I have given two forecasts. I have used one type of forecast with a green line and one type of forecast with a yellow line. So these types of advanced forecasting or advanced predictions can be done with R, where you can have different forms of forecasts where you believe, okay, maybe have forecast type 1, forecast type 2, and finally you can pick the most ideal forecast. So in this picture, the yellow line is more closer to the blue line as opposed to the green line. So when you come down, there's something like a box plot, which you can get it within R. This data set is basically from the Titanic data set, a very interesting data set where you get even competitions published by various companies where they ask you to use tools and identify the data problem, and then there are cash prizes as well. So this is basically based on the passengers who have onboarded Titanic. You're trying to predict who has survived and who won't survive. So here it's trying to show the distribution of the age gap. So there's the first class towards the third class. So the first class is all the people who have paid the highest amount of money. So they're like the most richest passengers on board. So you see their age gap is slightly higher. Then when you go to the second class, it's lower, and the third class is the youngest. They're probably seamen on board or basic people who work on board. So you get this type of illustration, box plot, trying to show a distribution analysis of your data using R. So when you come towards the right, you have these types of correlation analysis. So correlation means you're trying to understand whether there's one variable complement the other variable. For example, if one variable goes up, then the other variable also needs to go up. So here using R, you can identify, obviously, 1 means it's 100% correlation, while -1 means it's the opposite. That is, if one goes up, the other will go down. So here, based on variables, you can identify which variable correlates with the other. So why is this important? When you talk about, say, your customers, you can identify which product correlates better with the customer. And using correlation, you can maybe sell more of those products. And you can build this type of analysis to further improve your revenue growth. So your marketing team will benefit from this. Then cost inside as well, when you try to develop a product, you can identify which costs correlate more with the product as opposed to other costs. Maybe remove the costs that have less correlation and act on the costs that actually have benefits with the product. So you can use these types of analysis within R to identify, which is very powerful. Next here is something like with R, I can interpret what it tries to tell me. Based on my predictions, it gives me a summary report of it. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what it means. It takes time, but ideally this type of a diagram will tell you exactly whether are you 100% correct, are you closer to your predictions or not. So you can't get these types of analysis on Excel up to this level is what I'm trying to conclude here. The fact that is using Excel is much more laid back, and it's not the way to go for. So if you're trying to look at the best technology, it will be to use something like R. Right. So these types of dashboards are what we have developed based on lease data, where we have used Power BI, connecting to the Excel DBA data set, and we have visualized all the data you need to operate your leases. For example, whether your leases are going to expire, what are the largest leases, what are the smallest lease, comparison of depreciation and interest, forecasting that towards the next 5 to 10 years. So as accountants, all your lease data or all the analysis when it comes to leasing, you can now get it on a simple dashboard. Right. So this will be my last slide before I conclude. When it comes to big data, there is certain tools that you need to take, as I explained. So when it comes to data extraction, there's something called SQL, which is a Microsoft tool, which you can use it to extract data and build a data table. Now, normally what happens is we build the data table in Excel. So here you can build it in SQL as well. Then there's something called Ultrix. If you have not heard of Ultrix, Ultrix is something maybe you can Google. It's not a free license, you have to pay for it, but it's very easy. It's like made for somebody like us. For example, it's like Uipath, where you don't need to code. So SQL you have to code, but Ultrix you don't need to code. It's the best, I would say, one of the best tools in the market for data extraction, where people like us who are in the accounting industry who don't know coding can go ahead with it. Then when it comes to statistical, which is data analysis, there's R and there's Python. So Python is good. Python as overall software is, I think, the best in the market. But if you target statistical analysis only, so as accountants, we need to look at the statistical analysis. So for us, maybe learning R is more beneficial than learning Python. But if you are a computer programmer, maybe Python is better. When it comes to BI tools, as I said, that's to generate this full story into a nice presentation. There's Power BI and there's Tableau. So you can choose the tool you want to, but Power BI is much more easier for you to go ahead with it because it's similar to Microsoft packages, and also it comes free with the Microsoft packages. So I'll just show you a simple demo. I won't show you how it's done, but what I will do is try to make you understand of what you can do using Power BI. Right. I hope you can see my screen. Because I don't have much time at all, I'm not going to show you how I created this, but I'm going to show you what you can create. So when it comes to Power BI, you can create maybe what we call as a 3-tier type of a reporting system, where you have your summary report towards the board of directors, then you have towards us as managers a specific report, then maybe to the lower staff who have to do a lot of the administration work and dig deeper, maybe a separate report. So you can summarize your data and show it in a more detailed manner when you go to the managers, but to the top management, you can summarize. So here I have summarized the data, showing you your gross sales, your gross profit. Then I can filter this, for example, by year 2020, what it is. Then by the various months, it can get filtered. So once I filter it, it gets updated. It's a bit slow here because I've opened multiple softwares running Uipath and R at the same time. So it gives me my quantity, my revenue growth. And here I have my revenue analysis. I have my top 10 most profitable customers, top 10 least most profitable customers. So here one thing cool you can do with Power BI is you can even create a forecast. For example, if I were to click here, right. So if I were to click on the diagram, I can go to the forecast section of it. And I can create a forecast line here. So I'm not going to do it. It might take a bit of time, but I can forecast what will be my revenue growth as well. But this is not forecasting like R, but at a very basic granular level, you can do a simple forecast. So then if you look at the next dashboard, it's at a more higher level. They have identified maybe to your revenue manager or maybe to the accountant or to the finance manager at a slightly plainer managerial role, what you need to understand based on the overall health of your organization. So let it load. Right. So here what I have done is I've identified once again a short snapshot. I can filter it. I can filter it by customer, reducing profits above 20%, below 20%. Then who are my most profitable customers? Then which customers have been inactive the longest? How can I activate them? So here it identifies based on my purchasing pattern. For example, types of products which I have sold in January and February, but thereafter I not sold. So maybe how can I reactivate them? I can drill deeper on these products by clicking. So for example, if I click on this particular customer, it will give me all the products I've sold under this customer by drilling deeper. Okay, so it's telling me in January I have sold one type of product, but in February I have sold many types of products. So maybe if you're trying to reactivate them, try to sell these types of products again. So in other words, now you can reactivate customers, prevent customer churn, overall monitor various types of figures using Power BI, which gives you overall health check. So with this, I'll conclude on Power BI. I'll show you something very interesting in art that I will share you the code to do as accountants. If we are in the banking industry, normally what we have to do is when we compute our loan impairment, we have to compute our probability of default. That is trying to find where a customer moved who was today, or basically in the previous year, where has that customer moved today? So for example, a customer that was in the previous year might be in a different aging bucket in the next year. So the same thing can be done even for the debtors aging. So very simply what I'll do is I will be loading 3 types of Excel data sets into R, and I'll be comparing this particular data set. So I'm looking at the aging of Q5, comparing the customer aging at Q5 with Q6 and Q7. So here I'll just load this. So very simply with a click of it, I get the data in. So it's taking a bit of time because it's a large data set. It's like 50-60 MB worth data sets. So when you talk about using Excel to do VLOOKUPs, it's much more faster to use R to do the types of VLOOKUPs because R is much faster than Excel. So let me just run the overall code due to time constraints. So with simply this line of code, I'm going to do a VLOOKUP comparing Q5 with Q6 and Q5 with Q7 and showing us the results. Let me set the working directory. So one thing with R is you can connect it to multiple types of data sets. Right, so now that it has set the working directory, let me run this code. So ideally it's going to load in Q5, Q6 and Q7, and thereafter run a VLOOKUP comparing Q5 and Q6 and Q7. So now the code is running. So we as accountants, if you have to match 2 data sets, now this entire process can be automated. Well, let's say you have 2 types of Excel files, you have to do a analysis, VLOOKUP it and generate a report. This entire process can be automated with this code. Obviously, you can use R to do much more than this, but here at a very high level, sorry, at a very low level, I'm just trying to show you basically what you can use R to generate. So here it has given me the results already. If I had done this on Excel, it will take me so much longer. So let's see. So this is the final Q5, Q6, Q7. So let me show this. So this is your basic bank report. So here I have my customer who was in the current bracket. He has moved in Q6 to current, and in Q7 was his current. But if you look at the below customer, he's current, but in Q7 he's not applicable. So overall, this script can be used to do any sort of VLOOKUP now with multiple type of data sets, and you can do the reconciliations, and it's much faster than Excel. So I will leave it there due to time constraints, and I will share this code with you. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Hi, Johann. Thank you very much for that useful session. So I think we started with why we are going into automation topics at this point in our environment. And I think your last slides really elaborated on why we must use some of these techniques to bring in efficiencies, grow sales, manage working capital in our current environment. So we have quite a lot of questions, but we'll take the most important and the appropriate ones at this time in consideration of the time that we have. Johann, since you're online, I'll quickly pose one question to you. There is a question on whether when we are starting RPA, whether we must do a business process review. I think you touched in much detail on the methodology of doing a business process review. Can you please tell the audience why we must do it?
Sure. Very simply, if you don't understand your processes and you don't understand what is the right process, you may never know exactly whether if you even start with a particular process for RPA, whether have you started with the best process. So the goal that I am trying to emphasize on is identifying the best processes at the beginning. Because let's say you target about 5 to 10 processes, you automate that, and let's say the automation implementation time is a few months. You can quickly get your ROI by the time the license expires, which is over a period of 1 year. So the goal here is to ensure that when you start your automation, at least you break even or you get some sort of a profit on it. So if you do your business process review, then you'll be able to understand what exactly might be suitable processes to automate. But when it comes to implementation point of view, how we can help you is sometimes from an implementation point, the process might be complicated. So you have to identify the right process which is easy to implement and at the same time also gives you the highest ROI. So a business process review will show you what is the, from an ROI point of view, what is the good process, but you have to also do the analysis from a automation point of view as well.
Thank you, Johann. Then we also have a question on the pricing of RPA. Shervin, can I quickly ask you to enlighten our audience on the pricing mechanisms?
Okay, so I think quite difficult question. So because one fact is actually is when it comes to the pricing, we always come across territory compliances, because now in this particular forum, this is not only Sri Lanka but also different other parts. So generally there are different pricings given for emerging markets, for developed countries, and different regional Uipath officers govern this particular pricing. But always you can reach out to the particular pricing if you can get access to your nearest or the closest RPA reselling or Uipath reseller in your market. But also on the other hand, the general pricing will also sometimes it is available in the online forums, as well as if you Google it, you may also find certain general information related to pricing.
Thank you, Shervin. So there is another question. The biggest challenge I faced in RPA transition is to get those individuals challenged by the bots whose skills are limited to mechanical transaction processing to be committed to the transition and ensure its success. How do we overcome this challenge? So I'll take that one. So basically the question is, the individuals who have to basically get the project going are the ones whose jobs are probably threatened. How do we make sure that we get the best out of the project with such resources? So I'll tell you my personal experience. We went to have a discussion on RPA at a bank. And at the initial discussion, all the stakeholders who were involved said 80% of the work of this process can be automated. When we, Johann, I'm sure you remember, when we went back with our proposal, everyone said, no, actually, it's just 20% of the work that's manual, everything else is all right. So that is a good example of how people are challenged by use of bots in organizations. So it's very important to have this change management process within organizations, to have a open, transparent dialogue with the staff involved to say that this is the journey that we are taking in the organization. We need your support, and it does not necessarily mean that your jobs will be at risk, but it is to make better use of the resources that we have. It is to give better quality of work-life balance to our staff and other qualitative aspects. So just to share my experience on that aspect. And also there was a question on how are audit firms, smaller audit firms going to handle RPA in organizations. So I will answer these questions, and with that I will open it out to Dimuthu also as the Vice President of the Kuwait Chapter to help me in the with the question, and then thereafter to finalize the session. So I think Dimuthu, when he started the session, he said as accountants, we need to skill or reskill ourselves to be appropriately skilled to serve our organizations. RPA or these automation technologies are not rocket science. These are techniques that can be easily learned. So as chartered accountants, whether you're in a large audit firm or whether you're in a small audit firm, I think we have the capability, we have the skill, we have the knowledge that is required to learn some of these technologies that are out there and to be able to use it in our professional life, whether we are at an organization or whether we are in a Johann, you can add to that also, because I'm sure you also have accounting background, but you have learned a lot of these tools and you're providing these services to our clients.
Correct, ma'am. So if you were to ask me initially when I started my role in an audit firm, I didn't even know how to open an Excel file. So that's how bad I was. I didn't even know how to properly do a sum function or a if function. I didn't even know what a VLOOKUP was. So that's how bad I was. But what I think is it's about understanding basic logic, because when it comes to certain types of tools which don't have any code in, there's a logic that follows. So for example, in Uipath, there will be a logic that needs to be understood. Once you understand the logic with that, you can go for it. For example, as accountants, we know what debit and credit means. So since we understand that logic, we can post any sort of transaction, because we know the basics. Same way when it comes to a tool like Uipath, also you have to know the basics. Then when you go to a coding tool like R, you also need to know the basics. So to initially learn it might be difficult, because always the first step in learning anything new is always hard. But once you get your foundation right, everything else becomes easy.
Thank you, Johann. So with that, Dimuthu, I'll hand over the session to you in the interest of time.
Yeah. Thank you, Hiranthi. What an insightful and comprehensive presentation. I'm sure three of you created a platform for every one of us to start, think, and act towards automation, which is one of the objectives of this event. Thank you once again. With that, let me invite one of our dynamic executive committee members, Shukri Suhaib, to do the closing remarks of the event. Shukri, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dimuthu. The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation. Very good evening, everyone. Yes, indeed, we had an enlightened session with the great insight of the future of our business world with automation and data analytics. And we have been fortunate to have the eminent panelists from the areas of RPA and data analytics. First and foremost, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Shervin Janze, the practice head and the project manager of Uipath EGUARDIAN for Sri Lanka. Thank you, Shervin, gracing your crucial work and sharing us your valuable knowledge on RPA on Uipath at this present time. I also thank Johann Anderson, the manager who leads Financial Accounting Advisory Service, EY Sri Lanka, for giving his worthy contribution to the event and sharing his invaluable thoughts and experience on robotic process automation and data analytics, which is really important in this current changing environment. Thank you, Johann, for your great effort and time for us. Also, I would like to thank Hiranthi Fonseka, the audit partner for EY Sri Lanka, who, despite her busy schedules and other commitments, humbly accepted our request without any hesitation. Hiranthi, we cannot thank you enough for your esteemed contribution to make this event valuable for us and conducting an insightful Q&A session. Once again, I want to state that we are grateful to the entire panelists and we thank you for shedding some lights on automation and data analytics. Of course, no events in this nature can become successful without the participation. I'm delighted to inform you all that there are more than 130 participants have joined this online webinar, which is really amazing. On behalf of the Executive Committee, I take this opportunity to extend my most sincere thanks to all the member and non-member participants from Kuwait, Sri Lanka, GCC countries, and around the world. We sincerely believe the webinar is really informative and beneficial for all of you, and your enthusiastic participation made this event a success. And last but not least, a big thanks to the Executive Committee members for arranging this session. Yes, clock is striking so fast and it's time for us to wrap up the session. Our team will be very happy if you can just click on the shared link on the chat section and give your valuable feedback on this event in order for us to make our future events a further success. If you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk with others. Yes, the Sri Lanka Kuwait Chapter want to walk far with greater success with you all. So join us again. Have a good evening.